Alright, I want to do a little something different. I want to make an Ironclad tier list. If I can figure out how. I'm a little slow right now. Okay. This is right after the last run, by the way. We're just gonna go in order. Aggression. I think it's horrible. I think that there are very few circumstances in which you want to take it. Um, I think it's random. I think that, yeah, I think that the randomness of it is just kind of not very good. And I feel like the effect itself is not very good. Um, like there are some cards that you want to get back for like Rampage or um, the one that exhausts the attacks in your hand and then increases the damage by that number. Like that's a time you would want it, but still, it's not guaranteed that you're even getting the card that you want back. So I'm putting it in D tier. I think it's not very good. Anger. I think it's okay. I. By the way, I should do this as a precursor. I'm not very good at this game. This is based off my experience of getting A10 and beating A10 with the Ironclad. Um, I'm still not very good at the game. I'm still got a lot to learn, but this is like my preliminary tier list. So keep that in mind that this is not a professional opinion. This is my opinion, and my opinion is fucking stupid. So take it with a grain of salt. This is just something that I wanted to do, so I'm doing it. It's not that deep, quite frankly. Anger. I think it's C tier. I think that it can be okay. I don't like how it floods my deck with other angers, but sometimes that's not too bad. You know, if you have a shitload of strength and you just want to play off attacks and shit like that and do as much damage as possible, I think anger is an okay choice for that. Um, I think it's a decent card to take early. Um, but other than that, I don't think it's that special. I think it's, you know, it's got its ups and it's got its downs. I don't always really want to take it. And even when I did take it, I didn't feel like it really did too much, but I could be mistaken. Also, S tier. S tier is like run winning. A tier is very good. B tier, I think, is above average. So, like, good, but like, I'll just say good. I think C is like niche picks or like okay cards, and then I think D is niche. And then I think F is actively bad. Next card. Armaments. I think Armaments is. I think it can be good. I think early on, if you can upgrade it, it's very nice to have. And I think with things like a miniature cannon, it's better. Especially if you can't rest or if you can't smith very often. I think having some way of upgrading your cards is nice. Um, but it does kind of take an upgrade slot, and you're not always drawing the cards that you want to upgrade. I found it to be kind of just there a lot of the time. Either I already had upgraded all my cards, or I, I'm taking time to upgrade it first, and then it's just kind of like the upgrades are nice, but I don't think they're that important. And maybe I'm just stupid, but I don't think it's a bad card by any means. I think it's just kind of takes a little bit of like the stars to align for it to really kind of shine. so I'm putting it in C tier for that. Ashen Strike, I think, is A tier. I think it's a really strong card. Whenever I do exhaust builds, which I did in my last build, I didn't check the damage. I probably should have. Actually, I can check it right now because I just did the run. Hell from Beyond did the most damage. The Ashen Strike was right there behind it, so. And I mean, Ashen Strike did the most damage in the combat. It's just throughout the run, Howl from Beyond did the most, which makes sense because there's a lot more AoE fights. How do I close this? But I think Ashen Strike is kind of like a cornerstone of any exhaust build. It just does so much fucking damage. It's um, obviously you don't want to take it every single time, but even in pretty much any build that you're doing or any deck that you have, that you're gonna have some exhaust cards, and Ashen Strike can do a good amount of damage. Um, even early you have Ascender's Bane that exhausts. Um, you can get common cards that exhaust, and then Ashen Strike is going to be hitting a lot harder. I think Ashen Strike is just great whether it's early in the run or late in the run, regardless of what build you're doing. Obviously, it's better with exhaust, but usually if you have exhaust cards in your deck, it's still going to be doing like with vulnerable, it can do like 20 some damage, even with minimal exhausted cards. So I think Ashen Strike is just very strong, and it's one energy. Like it's fucking ridiculous. Barricade, I think I took it like once or twice in my entire 810 run through for Ironclad, and I found it to be good when it worked. Like it's kind of just like if you get it and you can play it and do things with it, it's kind of just run winning, but you probably were gonna win regardless. I think it's expensive. So it's hard to play. Yes, the energy cost can go down if you upgrade it, but like I feel like you're upgrading it and then you're playing it whenever you can, and that turn you might be taking damage, so you can't block as much. I don't know. I think that paired with the right cards, it can be really strong, but I think by itself, it's kind of unnecessary, and especially with like, because there's cards like where are they? I mean, like this is one. I think Colossus is, um, one of those cards where it's just kind of like makes Barricade unnecessary, but it does make it a lot stronger. I think Crimson Mantle, there's one in particular that I'm looking for. I think it's Unmovable. Or did I just look at that one? Yeah, Unmovable. I think that those cards can make Barricade really strong, but I don't know. I feel like Barricade is just kind of like a little unnecessary. Like if you have Unmovable, you're already having a shitload of block, and then you can just Body Slam and do a shitload of damage. But Barricade makes it even more of a shitload. Makes it a shit ton. And I think that's worth something, even if it's hard to play. So Barricade, I think, goes in B tier. Bash, I think, is C tier. I think it's it's good to start with, obviously, because you have to start with it. I don't really care to remove it most of the time. Sometimes I do if I've removed enough cards, and I don't really need it left. Because sometimes you don't have any strikes or defends. If you take Pandora's Box, or if you just happen to get a lot of card removal. Um, the vulnerability is nice. I mean, it's an okay card. You start with it. It's not going to be anything special. Um, I think it's just kind of there. It's a nice way to play vulnerable early, but too vulnerable isn't going to be a whole lot unless you draw your vulnerability synergies with it, like Molten Fist or Dominate or Tremble. I mean, not Tremble, but like I don't know. I feel like it does kind of require an upgrade if you want it to actually apply a good amount of vulnerable. Otherwise, it's just kind of there. I feel like damage is kind of not great. Um, so I don't know. I don't think there's a whole lot to say about Bash. You start with it. I think it's kind of just there, I guess. Battle Trance, I think, is A tier. Um, I think that having card draw with, in most cases, no downside. I think just drawing 3 cards is probably a lot better than a lot better and worth the sacrifice than being like, oh, well, now I can't play Pommel Strike and draw a card. Oh no. Like, you got three draw, like, and it's for zero energy. Like, what do you want? Um, I think it's a really good card to just, have draw. Like, even if you're running something like Dark Embrace or whatever, I think it's still good, just as like a last ditch effort to dig for what you're looking for. Um, it synergizes with like Fiendfire and things like that. Um, it just helps you get what you want. I mean, it's fucking card draw. What do you want me to say? Card draw is great, and it's three cards and a fourth upgraded, so it's like that's a good amount of cards to have. Um, yeah, I just think it's really strong. Blaze. Also, I should say, I'm doing with all of these under the impression that it's Ascension 10 and single player, except for multiplayer cards, which I'm going to talk about them in reference to multiplayer, which I know I haven't really uploaded a whole lot of, at least recently. Not that that matters, but I still have done a lot of multiplayer, so I feel like I know generally what these cards do. I think Blaze is very strong as well. Um, I think being able to give 5 strength as a skill whenever you draw it to the silent doing shivs or the defect doing zero cost stuff or another ironclad who might be stronger than you who's doing you know a lot of hits, um region if they're spamming stars or if they have like stardust or heavenly drill, like I think it just makes everything so much stronger and pretty much every character can use it to some degree. um So I think Blaze is just a very good card to have. I think it just synergizes with what pretty much any character wants to do, depending on the build that they're running. Obviously, you probably don't want to take it if um, no one's really using it, but I think if they are using it, it's still just a really good card. Bloodwall, I think, is a great defensive card. I think it is potentially A tier because it's a good mana block. It's like 8 block per energy and 10 if upgraded, so that's about like it's basically a shrug it off, except it's slightly less block for the energy or per energy, but you also have to look at it as synergies that it has, which shrug it off doesn't really have. I think with those synergies and just being a really good block card for one card that you draw, I think it's A tier. You can make the argument that it's B tier. Um, but I think just the sheer amount of block that it gives and the synergies that it can have is worth A tier. Bloodletting, fucking A tier. I think it just helps you play the cards that you want to play, like Barricade, Demon Form. Um, it has health plus synergies. You can play Bludgeons with it. You can play fucking Corruption. You can play Dark Embrace. It just helps you do what you want to do, and there's synergy with it. So I think it's just a really good card. Um, I think that it enables pretty much what every build wants to do. Um, I don't know if it's run winning, but I think it's close to it. In fact, I might just put it there because I think that it's. I feel like if you don't have something that you want that bloodletting can help you do, I think you probably just lost anyways. I think that, you know, I think it just helps you do what you want to do. It helps you set up. It helps you do more damage when you need it. It helps you block more when you need it. It's just, and it has health loss synergy. Like, I don't know. I think it's run winning, even though it's just like a stinky uncommon, or yeah, a stinky uncommon. I think it's still run winning just because of how much it enables your ability to do what you want to do. I love taking bloodletting. I think it just makes it easier to play the game. Makes it easier for me to do my win con. Um, you do kind of have to draw it on the right turn, because if you don't, it's kind of a bit of a dead draw. But I think if you're able to draw it on the right turn, it can win you the game, or it can win you at least a fight. And if it's an important fight, then you basically just won an important fight. um, so I think Bloodletting is extremely strong. Bludgeon, I'm gonna put B tier. I think it's pretty good. Anyway, pretty good. I mean, good. I think the sheer amount of damage it does is really strong early game. I think it falls off a little bit late game, but even with vulnerable or corrupted, it can still do a pretty significant amount of damage. But especially if you can get it early game, which is not too hard, I think it just kind of can just carry you through the early game. It just makes most elites easier. It makes most bosses easier. Yeah, I think the sheer amount of damage it does is just extremely helpful early. Body Slam, fucking A tier. I think Body Slam is great. Even if you're not doing something that's like super defensive, if your run is strong enough, you often are getting a lot of defense just passively. And if you can upgrade Body Slam, which I think is the one stipulation, I think it kind of has to be upgraded. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it becomes significantly stronger once it's upgraded compared to some other cards. I think early game you could play 2 defense and a Body Slam and basically have a dash from the silent for technically 3 energy, yes, but it could get down to 2 energy, and you could have an energy left over to do whatever you want. I think it's just a versatile card. I think it's run winning if you're doing a defensive kind of setup. It's like required if you're doing defensive stuff. And I think having at least one in your deck if you're finding yourself with a lot of block could be just really strong. So I think Body Slam is a great card. I think it's just versatile and allows you to be offensive while being defensive at the same time. And I think that's a valuable combination to have. Also, being 0 energy is just kind of ridiculous when it's upgraded. Brand, I think, is also A tier. I think it's a way to scale, and it synergizes with Health Boss. It exhausts things. It just kind of does what Ironclad wants to do. I don't find it super exciting to take, but I think it's just. I mean, it's a little exciting, but this isn't an excitement tier. This is how good I think the card is. I still think it's pretty good. Getting 2 strength when you use it, exhausting a card to thin your deck or do exhaust synergies, and losing HP to do HP loss synergies, and for not much HP, which is 1, which if you have Tungsten Rod is 0. So I think it's just kind of like one of those things that can help you scale without a whole lot of downside. You know, it's not scaling as fast as Demon Form, but it's much easier to play. It's not as dangerous as Fight Me. It's, it has more longevity than Flame. I think it's just a much more versatile way to scale than a lot of the other scaling cards that for strength that the Ironclad has. And it just, like I said, it just does everything that the Ironclad wants to do. Break, I think, is fucking stupid. I don't know if it's run winning because I didn't get it very often. I think I got it once during my Ascension 10 playthrough as the Ironclad. I think that it's definitely strong. Is it run winning? I think it could be. I think if you're doing the right deck, I think it could be. I'm tempted to put it in an S tier just because it does seem that stupid, and upgrade it does fucking 30 damage. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. And applies 7 vulnerable. It doesn't just increase the damage, it increases the vulnerability. Which if you have fucking Dominate, or Molten Fist. That's 14 fucking strength right there. It's ridiculous. I can't say it's run winning because I didn't get to play with it very often, but I could easily see it being run winning. It's just a stupid card. It doesn't cost a relic or a boss relic, but I think it's worth it. Breakthrough, I think, is B tier, potentially A tier. I think having AoE early is extremely important for the frog parasite and the eels. And just in general is useful even later on, but especially early on when you're kind of struggling, when you struggle more against those kinds of fights. I think once you get later, you kind of can single target the AoE fights a lot easier than you could otherwise. But early on, I think if you're struggling with AoE, you're kind of just dead. And Breakthrough is an AoE card, so I think it's automatically kind of B tier, at least. And the HP loss synergy, I think, is pretty strong. It can be used for Combust for even more AoE. It can be used with Rupture to increase your strength. It's got a lot of synergy that something like Cleave and Slay the Spire one didn't have, and even then Cleave was pretty good, I think. So I don't know. I think it's just a strong card. You could make the argument for A tier, and I might put it in an A tier, but not yet. Bully. I think it's. I think it's okay. I think zero energy is kind of strong because if you are doing vulnerable shenanigans, it can do a shitload of damage. I just find it hard to do vulnerable shenanigans. I tried a couple times during my Ascension 10 run through, and I never really got a vulnerable thing to work. I think in multiplayer it's really strong because vulnerability is a lot easier to apply and you have a lot more people doing it. But this is single player, and I don't think the Ironclad has ways of applying an absurd amount of vulnerability without the absolute like god run. So I think that it just kind of is lacking in damage a little bit, but I still think it's fine. Like even if you're not doing vulnerability things, it's still like your chances are you're applying at least a little bit of vulnerability. And then it's doing let's say you have like 5 vulnerable on them, which isn't too unrealistic. It's doing fucking 14 damage or 19 damage for 0 energy, which is really good. But if you don't have vulnerable, it's kind of just like a dead draw. Um, there's other things I'd rather see. Um, I don't think it's bad. I think it's just kind of like requires a little bit of setup to do. It kind of requires the right situation. Um, Otherwise, I think it'd be a lot higher if it was easier to apply a lot of vulnerable, like with break. I think you get break and bully, then that's a strong combination. But how often are you getting break? You know, and I don't really want to take bully unless I have a lot of vulnerability, so I have to see it later in the game for me to really want to take it. Early game, it could be fine. You're playing 2 vulnerable if you draw it with Bash, and that's 10 damage for 0 energy, which is strong, but it's not like that exciting. I think it has its place. I think it can be good, but otherwise, I think it's just kind of there. Burning Pact, I'll put it in B tier. I think being able to exhaust cards is nice because there's synergy with that, and then being able to draw 2 to 3 cards, it's card draw. It isn't 0 energy card draw, but it is card draw, and in some cases with like Hell from Beyond, as you can see, is pretty good. I, look at that. Being able to reliably exhaust Hell from Beyond is pretty nice. The only stipulation I think is that it exhausts first before it draws. So you can't draw and then exhaust. You can't draw, have a better chance of drawing Hell from Beyond and then exhausting it. I think it's just solid card draw and has synergy. Yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about it. I think Cascade is kind of not great. I think there's situations where it can be good, especially with something like Headbutt, but it requires a bit of setup, and you're taking Cascade over other rare cards. Probably not. um, am I gonna take it over a fucking Offering? Am I gonna take it over? I don't fucking know. Um, Unmovable? Am I gonna take it over Primal Force? Am I gonna take it over Mangle? Hell, am I gonna take it over Hellraiser? I might take it over Hellraiser. Um, um, I mean, it's just like I feel like it kind of requires a specific setup to really do. And even then, I think there are cards that do it better, like Bloodletting. You want to play Demon Form for free. It's not free. It's all your energy. It's just it could be one energy. um, but it still requires a turn of setup. So you might as well just play Demon Form normally. Um, I think it's just kind of a funny card, and it is funny. I did have a run where I think I had it recorded, where I got where it played Cascade at the start of the floor for free, and that was pretty funny, and that was pretty good. But even then, it was RNG dependent. Like sometimes it was really good, sometimes it was just kind of like okay. I think Cascade is fun, but not all that good. Although if you do upgrade it, it is one free card from the top of your deck. So it's basically like a Havoc. And I think Havoc is actually like kind of good. I've heard somewhere that it was not good, that it was one of the worst Ironclad cards, but I kind of disagree. I think Havoc is actually pretty strong. Well, maybe not pretty strong, but I think it's in one of these 3 tiers for sure, which I know is going to be most cards, so it doesn't really mean much. But anyways, Cinder. Cinder I think is B tier. Does a lot of damage, has exhaust, works with Hell from Beyond. I think Cinder is just pretty good. It's just a lot of damage, and that can carry you through the early floors. Um, yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say about this card. I think it's just a lot of damage and exhaust synergy, which is nice. But other than that, what more is there to say? And it's a common card. Like you can get it pretty easily. So it's a reliable way to do a good amount of damage. Can it exhaust something that is important to you in early fights? Yes. But do you really care about losing a strike or a headbutt or something like that when it does fucking 24 damage upgraded? Not really. So it's 12 damage per energy, which is probably more than most upgraded 1-cost strike pluses, if not more than all of them. So yeah, Cinder I think is pretty good. Maybe not pretty good, but good. Colossus, I think it's good. It's block and weakness, kinda, and 1 card, which I think is not bad. And if you compare it with weakness, I think it's pretty strong. Um, you do kind of need vulnerable for it to work. Otherwise, it's a dead draw. But you're not taking it unless you have a lot of vulnerable. I mean, you can take it if you need defense, and you can hope that you draw it with something like Taunt, which is just a good card to have. Um, I think it being applicable to all enemies that have vulnerable is nice. It's 1 energy for basically AoE weakness, with a little bit of block. Like I think it's a good card. I don't think it's anything super special. I think it allows you to kind of do what you want to do on a turn and just kind of save you some damage, but I don't think it's anything particularly crazy. You can make the argument for it being C tier, I think, but I think it's good enough to be B tier. Maybe. I'll put it in B tier for now, but you're on thin ice. Conflagration, fucking A tier. This card is great. Um, it's AoE for 1, so if you see it early or even late, it's just nice to have. It's just nice to have, okay? And if you get a lot of strength, or if you get an enchantment, or if you get Akabeko, it's doing an absurd amount of damage to all enemies, and that is really nice to have. Um, so I think Conflagration is just kind of a shitload of damage, a shitload of damage that you can scale pretty strong or pretty well, or it can scale to an absurd amount of damage. Um, I don't think it's like run winning or anything. It can be a focal point of a run that you build around and just kind of like destroy everything with, kind of like Whirlwind, but much more reliable and much cheaper than Whirlwind. Um, I mean, it's only 8 damage to all enemies, which like is worse than fucking Breakthrough, but like it scales so fucking hard. Like even a setup strike, which I don't think setup strike is particularly good. I took it maybe like once my entire Ascension 10 playthrough. I think even if you can get this early and get a setup strike on it, it's an absurd amount of damage for one energy. I fucking love Conflagration. So yeah, Corruption S tier. Um, Crimson Mantle, I didn't get to play with very often. I think it's good, and I think yeah, I'll just put it in good. I don't have much to say about it. I think it has HP loss synergy, which is nice. You can combine it with, strength gain. You can combine it with AoE damage. It's a good amount of block, especially upgraded. Um, it helps you do the things that you want to do. It's kind of just like an anchor that you can have every single turn. That's pretty good. Um, I don't think it's necessarily very good, but I also didn't get to play with it very much. So maybe it is very good and I just don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, which is entirely possible. Um, I think it just kind of helps you do what you want to do. It's an anchor every turn. What's not to like about that? Cruelty, I think is a bit unnecessary. I think it's okay. I think 25 extra damage on vulnerable enemies is just kind of like not super exciting. Um, is vulnerable 50% or 25% by default? I think it's 50%. Yeah, it is. Is it? No, I think it's 20. It might be 33%. I don't fucking know. Um, no, it's 50%. Yeah, it's 50%. Um, an extra 25%. Like, really? Are we being real for real right now? And then another 50%, so it's like 100%, or maybe not 100%, but like I don't know. I don't know percentage math. I'm fucking stupid. Okay, leave me alone. Um, I just don't think it's necessary. Like I never took it and was like super excited about it. I think I took it once and it was like okay, but like it wasn't that impressive. It was just kind of like there. It may have like won me a fight or two, but like I don't think it's good. I mean, it's okay. I didn't take it very often, so I can't speak on it very much. But yeah, Work Embrace, A tier. It just even if you're not doing exhaust shenanigans, you're still doing exhaust shenanigans sometimes, and that's card draw. If you have Stoke, it's fucking game over. If you have Corruption, it's game over. It's probably game over anyways if you had Corruption, but still. Um, I think it just enables so much with exhaust synergies that I feel like it can't be anything less than A tier. I think it's so much utility. And I got this card on other characters, which this tier list is not based on that. It's based specifically on how good they are on the Ironclad. But if we want to be pedantic, we could say that it's really good on other characters, like the Silent, who has shivs up the asshole, and Dark Embrace would be great on. I know this personally because I got it. It's fucking stupid. Um, so if you can get any sort of exhaust synergy going, Dark Embrace basically is, I don't know about run winning, but it's up there. Defend F tier. It's a card you are actively trying to remove from your deck. I think it's better than Strike, but I think on the Ironclad you could argue that Strike is still better. I think Defend might be the worst card on the Ironclad. It's just not. It's a card you want to remove. It's the baseline. It's not what you aspire to have. Um, I don't think I need to say anything more about it. Demon form I think is okay. I think it can scale and like be really strong, and it just got buffed, so it's doing more. I just think it's too hard to play. I think it's if you have bloodletting and shit like that, sure, but like even on hallway fights, you're probably better off taking a turn to try to do damage and clear the hallway fight rather than scale, because you don't want to scale on hallway fights. You don't need to most of the time. Even on elite fights, you don't really need to scale. I'd rather take a turn to do damage and weaken the elites than scale. I feel like maybe it's even D tier. I don't think it's horrible, but like I feel like it's specifically for bosses that you need it for. And I feel like you need it for bosses if you don't have a way of outscaling them or really like a win con. You need a win con, and Demon Form is your win con. But it's still hard to play, and you're taking a lot of damage, and it's just hard to play. Um, it's fun. I love Demon Form. I just don't think it's very good. I took it a couple times, and every single time I was extremely underwhelmed by it, even with its buff. I was like, even with this buff, I can't just play it because I'm taking fucking 25 damage a turn, you know? And you get a turn to play it. I want to fucking do other things. I want to attack. I don't want to demon form. Demonic Shield is A tier. It's really good. It's just I mean, if you have a defensive thing going on, it's strong. And Ironclad has ways of getting a lot of defense. Every character has ways of getting a lot of defense, I think. I think the Ironclad being able to share that with anyone and just kind of like keep the group alive, I think is very nice. Um, I think it's just a strong card. I don't have a lot to say about it because it's multiplayer, but and it's HP loss synergy, which, you know, maybe I'm overrating, but I think it's valuable. Dismantle, I think it's B tier. I think it scales a little slow, but I think early game it kind of just kills things. Um, and having a card that just kills things early on, if you can apply a single vulnerable to them, I think is just really strong. Um, I do think it falls off a little bit. I think it becomes a little less useful, but even in late game when you have probably something else that you'd rather play that does damage, I think vulnerable is still a decent choice. And I think, with some strength gain, it can outshine even some other cards that you might otherwise consider. Um, like Bully. I think Bully probably scales better than Dismantle if you're dedicating to vulnerable synergies, but I think Dismantle is still situationally better than Bully, and is far more reliable and better 99% of the time than Bully is. Dominate, I tried getting this card to work. I really have. I feel like it's amazing in multiplayer, but this isn't a multiplayer tier list. Um, I think it needs to apply more vulnerable because I feel like it's just so hard to get vulnerable to get to an absurd amount, and it exhausts. Which, yes, there's events that make it so that it doesn't have to exhaust, but like you're banking on that, and I don't think that's something that you necessarily want to do. Um, I think dominate just. I just feel like there aren't enough ways to apply vulnerable reliably, and maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm taking the wrong cards. Maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. I feel like vulnerable synergies are too slow and reliable or reliant on what you draw and how you draw them. So I'm gonna put Dominate in C tier. Maybe that's incredibly stupid. I just feel like I never really got it to work. I feel like if you can get it to work, it's great. If you can't, it's kind of just there. And you're getting one or two strength off, or yeah, one or two strength off of it, which isn't horrible. But for a rare card, it's kind of not what you're looking for. Drama Battle, I think, is probably B tier. I think if you're running it's draw. It's not as much draw as Battle Trance, and it doesn't. It costs one more energy, but it is draw, and it gives you energy if you exhaust it. Which, if you're doing exhaust shenanigans, can be fucking amazing. If I had a Drama Battle on the Ascension 10 one that I got, like I probably would take that because it's just a way to do more with the cards that you're drawing from Dark Embrace or the cards that you're getting from Stoke. Um, I think it just enables exhaust energies extremely well. And even if it doesn't, you're still getting card draw out of it, which isn't super useful. I mean, it's useful, but it's not like the most amazing thing ever because you're spending an energy to do it, which is what makes Battle Trance so strong, in my opinion. Um, you know, it's still card draw, you know. Um, and if you have the right synergy for it, it can be extremely enabling. Evil Eye is A tier. If you exhaust a card, you get fucking 16 block for 1 energy. And the only stipulation being that you have to exhaust a card and not exhaust Evil Eye on accident. Um, and upgraded, it's 22. It's 22 block for 1 energy. Is that okay to you? Do you think that's okay? That's not okay. It should be like 6 block and another 6 block, and then upgrade to like 8 or 9 block. Like, it's just too strong. I don't think it's run winning, but I think it's incredibly strong right now, especially if you're doing exhaustings. And even if you're not doing exhaustings, because every deck has a Sender's Bane, and every deck is running things that can exhaust. You're doing vulnerable things and you have Molten Fists, probably multiple of them, 16 block or 22 block. That's fucking stupid. I love that. Um, yeah, I mean it's just an ungodly amount of block for 1 energy. What more can I say about it? Expect to Fight, I think, is like C or D tier. I think it's I think it's okay. I mean, it's not okay. I mean, it's okay. It can enable you to do things that you want to do, but it requires you having a lot of attacks. And a lot of the time, I feel like it just ends up paying for itself, but like not in a good way. I feel like you're playing it and you're getting 2 energy out of it, or you're playing it and you're getting 1 energy out of it. Maybe if you upgrade it, you're getting a net positive of 2, which is still pretty good. But if you don't have card draw, which, I mean, if you have card draw, it's a lot better. I think it's I think it's okay. I don't think it's niche. I think it's okay. I think in the right circumstance it could be good, which is the definition of niche. Um, but I think it's reliable enough to where I'm willing to say that it's more than niche. It's okay. I feel like a lot of the time, especially if you're not upgrading it, and if you don't have card draw, it's just kind of like there. It kind of just gives you 2 energy. It kind of gives you 0 energy total. Not very exciting. Um, if you have Battle Trance or Drone Battle or something like that, it can be a lot better. But even then, you can kind of get shafted by it. I ain't too excited about it. I'm just gonna put that out there. Speed. Can I be real with you? I don't like this card. I think it's too hard to get it off. I think you can't stall as easily as you can in Slay the Spire 1. In Slay the Spire 1, you can get 999 block just with like 2 cards because you have fucking that one card that doubles your block. And then you can just stall. And I don't think you can stall as easily in Slay the Spire 2. And because of that, if you don't draw it, or if you draw it on the wrong turn, and you have to wait for it, you're taking unnecessary damage. I think it's okay. I think the max HP is nice, and it's a good amount of max HP, especially if you can do it often. But like, also, I feel like there's I'm putting in D tier. I don't like this card. I feel like there's other ways of getting max HP that are easy through events, especially the first act events. I feel like I get options for max HP very regularly. Um, and like if you get it late, it's not doing much for you. It's kind of just a waste of a rare card slot. Um, I got a lot of other things I'd rather take over it, and I feel like a lot of other things I'd rather do than 10 damage on the last turn to try to get 3 max HP, or 4 max HP. I think it's 4, might be 5. Yeah, 4. Um, I think max HP is valuable, and I've kind of have come around to that. I still don't think it's particularly good. I think if you get it really early, it can be good. I think if you are in the right situation and you can afford to stall a little bit, it's okay. But even then, like, I mean, it's also healing you, kinda, because you're getting 3 HP when you get it. But like, is that worth it? Is that worth stalling and potentially taking a lot more damage? Because I feel like when I play this, I'm playing it because it's just the stars aligned and I just happen to be able to play it. It does exhaust, which is nice, but like, am I using feed to get HP back or am I using it to exhaust? Because then I'd rather just have a Molten Fist. Feel No Pain, I think, is A tier. I think a lot of the exhaust synergies are A tier. I think being able to use Stoke and then fucking getting a Feel No Pain block is ridiculous for 1 energy. And then getting a Stoke from the Stoke and doing it again, or a Havoc and doing it a couple more times. I think Feel No Pain. I didn't get it on my Ascension 10 win, but I think if I did, I would be pretty fucking set. Um, I think it's just a really good card. I think being able to, and even if you're not using exhaust synergies, again, like I've said, every deck has exhaust synergies. Every deck is running some sort of exhaust. Every deck has at least an Ascender's Vein in it. Um, like I feel like even if you probably don't want to take it unless you're doing a lot of exhaust things, but even if you're not doing a lot of exhaust things, you still have cards that exhaust most likely. Um, and it's not a whole lot of blocks, so I feel like it's most notable when you are doing exhaust synergies, but it's still not horrible. And when you are doing exhaust synergies, it can just keep you alive and let you fuck around as much as you want. Fiendfire, I'll put it in an A tier. I think it's arguably B tier. I think it does a lot of damage. I think it has a lot of synergy. Um, if you have Dark Embrace, it's kind of just. And let's be real here. If you have Dark Embrace, Corruption, Fiendfire, Feel No Pain, Stoke, you're gonna win. Like, I won and I didn't have half of those things. Like, let's be fucking real here. Um, if you have the perfect run, you're gonna win. Fiendfire by itself, though, I still think is a good way to thin your deck. It's a good way to do a lot of damage. It's a good way to have exhaust synergies. I think it gives you what you want for a shitload of damage and potentially a lot of block and potentially a lot of draw, that you can then combo into with corruption if you fucking get corruption, which is a big if, but whatever. I think Fiendfire's A tier. I think it's not as strong as it was in Slay the Spire one. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you. I just feel like when I take it, I'm less whelmed by it than I was in Slay the Spire one. Bite me. um, S tier. No, I'm not putting it in S tier. Um, I love this card. I think it's fun as fuck. I think that it's dangerous as fuck. But I think I'm gonna have to put it in C tier because as fun as it is, as strong as it can be in hallway fights that don't last a long time, if you're using this on a boss that's doing 55 damage already and you're taking 66 damage, you can't be doing that. You just can't be doing that. Um, I think it's good for hallway fights. I think it has its place. I think it's fun as fuck. I think it can carry you through the early game a little bit. I don't think I want to use it on any boss fight, except for maybe the queen, and target the queen with it. and even then, like you're getting 3 or 4 strength, and flame can get you that much for much less risk. Maybe not as much, but it can still get you a good amount. And one in flame, which I think it gives you 2 to 3 strength on conflagration. That's already a good amount of damage. Fight me is just kind of like it gives you more strength, and it can be better. But 2 energy to make it fucking so that enemies are doing 66 damage to you in the fucking final 2 fights. That's a bit much, don't you think? I love this card, and it pains me to put it in C tier, but I think that's where it belongs. Flame Barrier, A tier. There's so many fights where this is doing 16 block plus fucking 16 damage for 2 energy. Like that's really good. It's just a great block card. It's a great way to be offensive and defensive at the same time. There's some fights that this just wins, like the exoskeletons and the bee guy. Um, like Flame Barrier just is great. It's fucking great, and it's fun. It's fun to not do anything and watch your enemies kill themselves on you. Um, so I think Flame Barrier is just really strong. I don't have a lot to say about it. Forgotten Ritual I think is good. I don't think it's like incredible, but I think if you're doing exhaust stuff, it's kind of like Drum of Battle except better. It just if you have Stoke and Dark Embrace and Forgotten Ritual, you can pop the fuck off, and it's fun as hell. So I think Forgotten Ritual is just kind of a great way to enable um, a lot of things. And again, you don't have to be doing specifically exhaust synergies for this to work. It can just be um, something that you play, and you know you exhaust things and you get 3 energy or 4 energy, and then you can do demon form, you can do barricade, you can do the things that are fun but too expensive to do, or you can just continue doing fucking damage, which is probably what you want, or block. Havoc, B tier. I think it requires a bit of an upgrade to be like super useful, but if you can upgrade it and you can get a couple of them, you can just it enables so much. It enables so many exhaust synergies. It allows you to play cards for free, basically. Yes, they're kind of random, but like I saw someone say that Havoc was bad. That was one of the worst Ironclad cards, and I do not understand that. I fucking love Havoc. It's fun as hell. I don't think it's A tier or something like that. I don't think it's that good, but it's fun as fuck. And even though this is not a fun as fuck tier list, it is still good in my opinion. I think it just enables you to do a lot of things. Um, think of it as like an anger, but like random. It does a random amount of damage, or it does a random amount of block, or 0 energy. I mean that can be pretty good. It's like Cascade. Cascade sucks because it's random and because it takes all your energy. And yeah, Havoc takes 0 energy if you upgrade it, and it's random. And you play a card from the top of your deck, which could be draw, it could be energy, it could be just a shitload of damage, it could be a bit of power, it could be a lot of things. Um, I mean, it could be anything, I guess. Um, I don't know. I think early on it's not that strong, especially since you kind of need to upgrade it. But once you get going, I think Havoc just is like the fuel for any good exhaust synergy. Um, it just allows you to do more, and I like doing more. Headbutt, I think is B tier. I think it's good. I think it enables you to do fun things. I think it helps other cards scale. You could argue that it's A tier. I don't think it's quite there. It's kind of just a strike plus that enables stronger synergies. I think it's a B tier card that helps A tier cards be S tier. Um, but by itself, I think it's still B tier. You can make the argument for A tier, and I'm contemplating it. I really am. I think it requires a bit too much like drawing the right things at the right time to be super useful. It's a tiny bit slow because it does require you to move to the next turn. I think it's a good card. I just don't think it's that good. But it does have a lot of synergy. It has a lot of things that, there's a lot of cards in A tier that you want to play more than once. I want to play Action Strike again. I want to play Battle Trance again. I want to play Blaze again. I want to play Bloodletting again. All those A tier cards, all those S tier cards, it lets you play them again. And that in itself is pretty strong. Um, and it can even be run winning. I think it can take an A tier card to an S tier card, but I think by itself it's not that great. It requires a bit of setup. Um, I mean, a lot of cards require a bit of setup, but I feel like it requires a little bit of setup to by itself not do much. That's my opinion. I still think it's a good card. I don't think it's extremely good, but it's solid. Hellraiser is fun. I've almost gotten an infinite on it before, but I don't think it's particularly good. I think if it didn't count as your draw, I think it would be a lot better. Where if you drew a strike, it played it for free, and then you got an extra draw from it, so that you still ended up with 5 cards in hand, and you could just play strikes like that. I think that would be a lot stronger. It might be too strong though, but it would be fun. I think right now, as it is though, it's just kind of okay. It helps you do a lot of damage. It helps you be offensive and defensive at the same time because you can play a lot of attacks and still have energy left over to defend. The problem is that if you don't have a lot of strikes, it's not doing much. Even if you have a lot of strikes, you kind of need the right kind of strikes, and by the right kind of strikes, I mean pommel strike. Without it, it's hard for it to do much. It's RNG dependent, on what you're top decking. I think it's fun. I think it can be really good. I think it can be run winning if you have Unceasing Top and no fucking other cards other than strikes, because then you literally can't lose. Well, I get you can lose, but like it's hard. Um, it's just it's just kind of niche, you know. It's it requires the right situation to be good, and even then, like it's not that good in my opinion. Unless you have Unceasing Top and no blocks, then you just go infinite. Um, so I don't know. I think it's niche. Even a Kinesis, I think is. I think it's very good. I think having the HP loss synergy is nice. I think the raw damage that it does is really good. Upgraded, it's 20 damage for 1 energy. Yes, please. Um, it's HP loss synergy. It can help carry you through the early game. It does a good amount of damage even into the mid and late game. I think Hemokinesis is just a strong card. Maybe it's not A tier, maybe it's B tier, but I still think it's worthy at A tier. Um, yeah, it's like in the server. It's like high B tier. It's just a solid card. However, from Beyond, honestly, I used to hate this card. I've come around to it. I think that if you can get it off, it can do insane things. I think if you have the right build for it, it can do insane things. It's basically free damage, with the only cost being draw and potentially not being able to play it very well. But even then, like early game, 3 energy for 18 AoE damage, pretty good. It makes the frog parasite and the eels so much easier, and it makes the decimillipede so much easier. And if you don't have a build for it by the late game or by Act 3, it's not as good. I feel like it falls off a bit, but if you have an exhaust synergy, it just kind of goes crazy. Um, I think it's a pretty strong card. Um, I don't think it's A tier. I think in the right build it is, but by itself, I think it's just kind of like a good AoE um, that sometimes you can play for free or play an additional time. Um, so I'll put it in B tier. Impervious, I think, is probably A tier, maybe B tier. I think it's kind of in the same boat as Howl from Beyond and Hemokinesis, where it's just like it can save your ass. Is really the kind of what I'm saying here is that this card can save your run if you draw it at the right time, and I think that's pretty valuable. Um, Not dying, I'd say, is a pretty good thing for a card to do. Um, it's not flashy or anything like that, but and also if you have barricade or body slam, it's a lot of damage, or it's just a lot of block to help you do things. And if you have one energy and you can combine this with barricade, like you're set up. So I think barricade just or impervious enables a lot. I think it helps save your runs. I think it helps you do what you want to do, and it can be used for damage. What's not to love? Infernal Blade I think is okay. I think it's too RNG dependent. Yes, it's exhaust energy, which I think helps save it from D tier. But you could draw anything. You could even draw an Ashen Strike, or I don't think you can draw a break. You can draw a conflagration. You can draw Fiendfire. You can draw Bludgeon. All those things are really good. You can also draw Setup Strike. You can also draw Twin Strike, which is not very exciting. You can draw Thunderclap, which is not that exciting. You can draw fucking Sword Boomerang without any strength. You could draw Spite. You can draw Rampage. Like, there's things that you don't want to draw. I think it's too RNG dependent. Sometimes you just get a card that doesn't really do much of anything, and then it's a wasted draw. I mean, it's not a wasted draw, but like, it's not great. And I think that the exhaust it kind of makes it more useful. But even then, I don't think it's super useful. Very rarely did I take it and was like excited about it. But I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's niche. I think it's just not anything super exciting. Inferno, I didn't understand this card until I realized it was whenever you lose HP on your turn. Because I was so used to the Spire 1 pills, where I was like, oh, it's just at the start of your turn, it does 6 damage. And I didn't bother to read the card that explains the card. Um, but now I think it's probably B tier, maybe A tier. I think that the AoE damage is nice. I think being able to do it whenever you take damage is nice. I think it working on beckons is pretty nice, and other status cards that damage you. Um, I don't think it's anything special though. I think it's just a solid AoE synergistic card for HP loss. Um, Maybe I'm missing something because I have seen some tier lists that put this in A tier, but I also think those tier lists were more top heavy, so to speak. I think Inferno just is a nice amount of AoE damage. It can really help you in fights like the Eels, the Frog Parasite, pretty much any early AoE fight. Even like game AoE fights if you have the right build for it. Um, I think it's just a solid card. Flame, I'm gonna put C tier. I think it's okay. It gives you 3 strength, 2 to 3 strength. I don't think that's anything super special, but with if you have configuration, it's. I clicked on the fucking picture to try to get a effect of the card. I'm actually stupid. It's fucking like what? Um, 20 damage AoE. Sword Boomerang is, I want to say, 16 damage. Like it helps. It doesn't not help. I just don't think it's anything special. I think it's just kind of like, yeah, it makes some cards stronger, but like not that stronger, not that much stronger. You know, and that's kind of where I like Fight Me is that it's consistent. It's where I like Brand. It's consistent. You can do it multiple times. It's not one and done. It's something that you can just keep doing and keep scaling. And Flippin' Flame does not have that ability to scale that I think is important for late game fights or even early game bosses. Iron Wave, I think, is good. Again, being able to be offensive and defensive at the same time is just nice. I don't think it's a very flashy card. I don't think it's a fun card just because it does so little damage. Blocking isn't fun. Damage is. It does less damage than a strike, therefore it must be bad. I'm joking. I don't think it's bad. I think it's just underwhelming, but still good. I don't have a lot to say about this card. I think it's just reading the card explains the card kind of thing. Um, but I think it's just solid damage and solid block. What more do you want? You know, it's a way to be offensive and defensive. And I think that's valuable. Juggernaut, I think in some cases it could be good. I don't think in many cases you could argue it's F tier. I don't quite think it's F tier. I think if you have Rage, it's good. I think if you can get after image, it's good. I think if you get that one relic that gives you block whenever you attack is good. Um, but even then, like, is it that good? Is it ever that good? I don't think so. And for 2 energy, no thank you. I got other things I'd rather be doing. I just don't think it's that good. I I mean, yeah, if you have Feel No Pain and you're playing Fiend Fire, it's gonna do a shitload of extra damage, but like it's just not necessary, I feel. I don't know. I don't like it. Juggling I also don't like. I think with something like Hellraiser is good. I think a lot of the D tier cards kind of synergize with each other, ironically enough, but how often are you playing 3 attacks in one turn and then having enough energy to play the third attack? Especially a third attack that you want to play, like, Perfected Strike or something like that. I mean, Action Strike, yeah. I could see this being good in decks that play a lot of cards like Exhaust Synergies. Um, but I feel like it's very niche, and even then, like, it's not really necessary to do things. It's just kind of is like a little extra, which isn't bad, but I don't know. I just don't get very excited about it. I don't think it does a whole lot. You still have to pay for the card. I think if you didn't have to pay for the card, it would be a little stupid, but you do still have to pay for the card, which makes it, I think, a whole lot less valuable. Mangle, I think it's kind of like Impervious. I don't think it's as strong, but I do think it is still a way to be offensive and defensive at the same time and potentially save your run if someone's doing a, I don't know, 50 damage multi-attack. Um, it works well with Fight Me, a card that I love. Um, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I think it's just a good way to be offensive and defensive at the same time, which I think is a valuable kind of strategy to have in Slay the Spire. You know, it allows you to do the best of both worlds. The only problem is that it doesn't work on Artifact. Well, it works on Artifact, it removes the Artifact, but you're not getting value out of it if something has Artifact. Because of that, I might put it C tier, just because there are a lot of fights that have artifacts, like Aeon Glass, the Goblin controlling the fucking body in the mech suit. Um, I think that it's a solid card. I just think that it gets countered by Artifact a little too much. If you have ways of removing Artifact, that's great. But maybe you don't draw Mangle in time. Maybe it's, a little too late. I feel like it kind of has a little bit too much draw reliability if you're fighting something with Artifact. And some things have a lot of Artifact. There are, like, Aeon Glass is like, what, 3 artifacts? I mean, you can get a Mangle off, but if you don't have vulnerable synergy, like, which, I mean, you can build around, but, like, I don't know. I feel like I feel like the artifact kind of makes it a little harder to play. Midnight AoE, or PV, multiplayer card. I don't know why I said PvP. Um, think in the right circumstance it can be A tier. I think if even one of your players is a silent that's going a Shiv build, I think it's good. Maybe I put it in B tier because not every silent's doing a Shiv build, nor should they. Probably. Just because the A on glass and, the B pervert and the hunter killer. Um, I feel like there's a lot of builds that counter silent shivs. Um, and as a result, I feel like Midnight is still good because you get value regardless of whether the shivs do damage. Um, and if you're doing exhaust things yourself, you can kind of scale it, or you can reduce the cost faster. It works with unrelenting as well, which is nice, but I feel like it just requires a little too much of things to be correct for you to play it. I don't think it's bad. I think it's still a good card. I just don't think it's like that special. Especially in multiplayer where everything has fucking 2000 health. Golden Fist I think is good. Um, I think it's good damage. It exhausts. It doubles your vulnerabilities. It's kind of the cornerstone of a vulnerability synergy. Um, that being said, I think it's hard to double vulnerable and be excited about it because vulnerable, like if you draw Tremble and Molten Fist on the same turn, that's great. But do you have Dominate? You know, and then by the time you do have Dominate, it's a bit later in the game. It's harder to get a Molten Fist Tremble combination off, and even then, you're getting 6 energy, which is still good, especially if you have like Conflagration or Sword Boomerang. But is it that good? Is it? I don't think it's that special. I think it's good, but I don't think it's like A tier. I think it's just kind of like, it's helpful. It helps extend vulnerability too, which is nice. It just gives you more damage, but I don't know. I have a bias against vulnerable synergies because I don't think they're that good. I mean, I don't think they're that good or that easy to pull off because it's just hard to get a lot of vulnerable on someone and make it exciting. Um, but I'm probably just missing something. I feel like I'm just like haven't gotten the right build yet to where I'm like, yes, this is fucking amazing. Um, I haven't had that experience with vulnerability yet, and maybe once I have it, I'll understand. Um, I used to not like exhaust synergies in Slay the Spire 1, and then I tried it one time and was like, I'm in love. And I'm still in love with exhaust synergies, so maybe you just have to experience it. Not yet, I think is okay. I think I'd rather just block. I think if you have a turn off where or the enemies have a turn off where they're not doing anything and you don't have anything you can do, it could be nice, but I'd rather do things and I already get healing. Is it more healing? Is that nice? Yes, but like I'd rather just block. It's basically 2 energy for 10 block that lasts for, the rest of the time, I guess. It's nice. I don't think it's bad. I don't even think it's niche. I just think that I'd rather just block or do damage. Um, it just doesn't excite me like that. 1-2 punch, I think, is I say it's good. I don't think it's like particularly strong. I mean, I don't think it's like crazy, but I think that there are attacks that you want to play multiple times. I'm looking at you, Action Strike. I'm looking at you, Fiendfire if you have Dark Embrace. I'm looking at you, Break. I'm looking at you, Body Slam. Um, Bludgeon, if you can have the energy base for it. Um, Howl from Beyond. There's a lot of cards that you want to play multiple times, and 1-2 punch allows you to do that. That being said, I do hate the name. I wish it was double tap. I hate that fucking name. Anyways, um, it just allows you to play the cards that you want to play multiple times, and I think that's good. Um, I don't think it's overpowered. I don't think it's necessarily very good. I think it's just it enables the things that are very good. It helps you do them multiple times, but without those kinds of cards, I feel like it's a little underwhelming. Outrage, D tier. I don't like it. I feel like in the right circumstance it can be okay, but if I'm doing multiplayer and I'm playing the silent and I have a good Shiv deck going on, and I have something that works well with itself, and someone plays Outrage and I draw fucking Outrage, I'm a little upset, especially if I'm drawing like five of them, which doesn't happen super often. Most of the time, it's just like in hallway fights, you're doing 9 damage and it's free, and someone might have one for all or whatever. And then it's nice, but like even then, is it that nice? I don't think so. I mean, you can make the argument that it's C tier. I just don't like it. I feel like it just clogs up people's decks, and not everyone wants zero card stuff. I mean, it's not necessarily bad. I just don't think it's. I think it just floods people's decks, and I don't like that. Max End. Can I be so fucking for real with you? I think it's C tier. I think it requires too much setup early on, and by the time you get to late game, I'd rather just have Hell from Beyond. Hell from Beyond is basically free. I mean, Max End is free too, but like Hell from Beyond, you can play it from Exhaust. Um, I feel like there's more synergy there with Hell from Beyond. Um, I think Pax End is just kind of like, yeah, it's nice damage if you can get it off early, and even late game it's or mid game it's good damage. I'd rather just Howl from Beyond though, and maybe I'm fucking high. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe I need to experience Pax End correctly for once. I just don't think it's that special. I think it's just kind of like a worse version of Howl from Beyond. That's my opinion. Perfected Strike, I think, is B tier. I think it does C tier. I think it falls off really hard, but I think it's good early game when you need damage. And once you get past like the second act and maybe even into the second boss fight, I feel like it just kind of becomes a little underwhelming. You want to remove strikes and shit like that, so its damage falls off. Um, like yeah, you can take Palma strikes, you can take twin strikes, you can take Hellraiser and make it better, but it kind of caps out around like 30 damage or so, which isn't bad. 2 energy, 30 damage is not bad by any means. I just don't think it's particularly special, and you kind of need to build around it in a way that is detrimental to your deck overall. I think having a shitload of Palma strikes and twin strikes isn't going to do much for you, especially if you don't have Hellraiser, and Hellraiser isn't particularly good in my opinion. So I feel like it's just kind of like doesn't have a whole lot of synergy. I feel like it's just kind of something you take in the early game to get through some fights, and then you just kind of don't play it later. Pillage, I think, is okay. I think it can have synergy, but I think if it did like 8 damage, I'd be more excited to take it, just because it would at least be a strike plus. Um, it synergizes with like Unrelenting. It allows you to play an attack that like you wouldn't otherwise be able to play. It synergizes with what's the card? The one that you get energy for how much attacks you have in your hand. But even then, like you're still gonna want skills and powers in your deck. So most of the time you're drawing like what, one or two or three cards, one to three cards. It's not like you're drawing an entire hand of cards. Um, I think it can be nice, but I don't think it's really that special. I think it could even be D tier. I don't think it's particularly great. Almost strike, B tier. It's a strike card. It's draw. Um, card cycling technically, but draw as well technically. Um, I think it's just a solid strike plus. It's kind of the definition of a strike plus. It's literally a strike that does more damage and has an extra effect. What more do you want? I mean, you want more, but like, and it synergizes with strike dummy, which I think is nice. Um, yeah, I think it's just a solid card. Not a whole lot to say about it. Primal Force is interesting. I think it's actually good. I feel like people don't like this card. I think 20 damage for 1 energy and a good amount of strength, like even if 5 strength to make it upgraded Primal Force do 30 damage per rock, and then vulnerability to do 45 damage per rock 3 times, I think that's a good amount of damage. I think that it does require a bit of setup. It does require a bit of luck in terms of your draws, but I think if you can get a good Primal Force off, you can do a stupid amount of damage, and it makes hallway fights kind of obsolete because you can just throw rocks at hallway fights and plow right through them. I think Primal Force is actually a good card, and I feel like a lot of people don't like it from what I've seen. I personally like it. Pyre, I think, is. I think it's C tier. Um, I didn't play with it very much when I was doing my Ascension 10 runs. I feel like it's nice to have the energy, but you have to draw it first. You have to draw it early, and then you have to draw the cards that you want to play with the extra energy on subsequent turns, and not draw Pyre too late and the other cards too early. And even then, you're getting 1 to 2 extra energy to do things out of demon form. Or, I don't know. I think it's okay. I don't think it's niche. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's particularly exciting or good either. I think it's just kind of okay. Rage, I think, is also. I think it's B tier. It's allows you to be offensive and defensive at the same time. And as I've said, I think that's a good combination to have. Um, I think that, it's just a nice way to be aggressive and defensive at the same time because it is 0 energy, so you're not missing out on energy for attacks that you want to play. I think if it was 1 energy, it'd be a lot worse. I think it would be like D tier, but it's not. It isn't 1 energy. It's 0 energy. Um, and something with like Juggernaut, you know, top 10 ways to make Juggernaut actually like somewhat decent. Top 10 things no one's ever said before. Um, this is like the one situation where Juggernaut is like actually decent. But we're not talking about Juggernaut, we're talking about Rage. I think Rage is just good. I think, like I said, it's a way to be offensive and defensive at the same time, and that's just important. I think that's a valuable combination to have because you want to be doing both things. Most of the time. If an enemy is attacking you, you want to be able to block, but you do also want to be able to do damage to finish the fight faster so that you're not taking more damage. And Rage just helps you do that. Rampage, I think, is just kind of like okay. I think it can be good early game, but it falls off late game because you're not scaling fast enough. Um, I I don't know. I just think Rage is a little underwhelming, even though it was buffed. It's not a great card. Um, it just doesn't do anything. It just does damage. It doesn't give you anything else, and it doesn't scale very fast. Like yeah, Action Strike just does damage. It doesn't do anything else, but it scales really fast. Rampage doesn't. Even with Headbutt, even with Cascade, even with 1-2 Punch, it's not scaling very fast. Like it requires a lot of setup to do just a perfected strike amount of damage. Like I'd rather just take perfected strike and not have to do all this crazy setup. In fact, I'm gonna put it in D tier. Rupture, I think, is kind of like a really good card. If you have the right build for it, it's kind of your scaling engine. It's how you win fights. It's how you win important boss fights. It's can get pretty nutty. Um, I think Rupture is just a good way to kind of have an identity for your run and carry it, in important fights. Even in early fights, if you can get it early enough. Um, there's just a lot of synergy with it. Ironclad has a lot of self-damaging cards that make Rupture scale very nicely. I think it's just a solid card. Second Wind. Um, I'd say B tier, maybe A tier. You can make the argument for A tier. I think that being able to it doesn't exhaust well, it technically exhausts itself, but it doesn't exhaust itself with its effect. So you have to have like at least two skills or powers in your hand for it to be better than a defend, which is not great. in my opinion. But most of the time, that's not the case. Most of the time, you might have statuses in your hands, like the gremlin in the mech suit fight, where you're getting burns in your hand for Aeon Glass, um, for the wounds and shit like that from the test subject. I think it just kind of helps clear your deck from shit you don't want, and it can be a lot of block for one energy, which is nice. And it has exhaust synergy, so I think it's just a solid synergistic card that can help you kind of ignore certain mechanics of certain fights. But I don't think it's anything crazy. Setup Strike, I think, is just D tier. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage. I think it can give you a good amount of strength for something like Conflagration, but most of the time you're going to want Brand or Inflame or literally just about anything else. Um, I don't see much of a reason to take it. I haven't taken it much. Maybe in the right circumstance it has its place, but I don't think that circumstance is very common. Shrug it off, B tier. I think it's just a good block card. It's block and draw, and a decent amount of block at that. Not a whole lot to say about it. I think it's just a solid card. Spite, honestly, I haven't played with this card very much. Um, I imagine it could be good, so I'm going to put it in C tier. I imagine that if you have Rupture scaling really nicely, um, and you have something like Crimson Mantle where you're losing HP every turn, it can do things, but otherwise, I think it's just kind of not necessarily a dead draw because it's only one less damage than Anger and has the potential to do a lot more damage than Anger. I just think it's a little niche. I think it's a little more than niche, but I think it's requires too much setup to be super useful. So I might even put it in D tier, but I'm gonna keep it C tier for now. Stampede, I think, is also C tier. I think most of the time you're gonna want to play all the attacks in your hand, and if you do have an attack left over, I think it helps you be offensive and defensive, but in a roundabout way, and a little bit of an RNG way, and requires just I don't know if it requires anything actually. It's just kind of is like there. I don't think it does enough for me to be super excited about it. Um, I mean, like, what's it gonna play? A Perfected Strike? Another rock? I mean, another rock wouldn't be bad, but like, I don't know. I just don't think it does enough. I think it has its place, but I don't think it does enough right away, or even in a long-term situation for it to be that valuable. Stoke, A tier, maybe even S tier. I think with the right cards, this card is fucking nuts. Um, I maybe it's because I won the Ascension 10 run with it, but I love Stoke. It's maybe my favorite Ironclad card. It's gambling, it's fun, it's one energy, it's exhaust, it's everything I love about Ironclad. I love gambling. Um, I have an addiction, and Stoke is the only cure I have for that addiction. I know I got the joke wrong. I was supposed to be the cowbell reference, and I butchered it, but you get the idea. Um, Stoke is just that with Dark Embrace, it's a two-card combo. It's not like you're fucking being like, oh, I need Fiend Fire, and I need Corruption, and I need Juggernaut, and I need Feel No Pain, and I need blah, 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 blah. Like, no, it's a two-card combo. You get Stoke, you get Dark Embrace, you have a handful of cards, and some of them might be Drama Battle, some of them might be Bloodletting, some of them might be the other card that I can't think of. Forgotten Ritual. I think Stoke is just so much value. It's so fun. And even though this isn't a fun tier list, it's got to count for something. Um, I love Stoke. I think it's a great card. I don't think it's run winning. I think, it does require a bit of setup for it to really work, but I think it's just incredibly strong and fun. And it gives you so much value. Stomp. I think it's good. I think it's a way to do AoE, and it can be reliable. The AoE is a little bit low, but if you're lucky, you can get it for 0 energy and do a lot of damage for 0 energy. Like, It can be a dead draw, but it can also, and even if you're doing it for 3 energy, doing that against the eels or the frog parasite infestator things, like that's still a good amount of damage. That's still fucking 48 damage. Took me too long to do that math in my head. It's a little embarrassing, but the point still stands. It does 48 damage to those things. That's for a 3 energy, that's good in my opinion. Even if it's two, even if it's 3 energy, it's still good. If it's 2 energy, it's pretty good. If it's 1 energy, it's great. If you can do it for 0 energy, perfect. Like it's just AoE. I think AoE is too valuable to pass up, especially early game. Stone armor, I think is niche. I think 1 energy for 4 block that you get for like basically a turn, like, and then you get 3 block, and then you get 2 block, and then you get 1 block. Yeah, sure. How valuable is that? Not very. I think if you have Orichalcum, I think if you have other plating cards or plating relics, I think it can mean something. Um, I think if you have Crimson Mantle, it can mean something, but it's never like, I don't think it's particularly good. I think it's just kind of there. I think in the right circumstances, it can be okay, but I'm never excited about it. I have taken it maybe like once or twice, and it didn't really do much of anything. Strike, F tier. Sword Boomerang, I think is B tier, potentially A tier. I think that it scales so well with strength. Like, yes, it's random and it's only 9 damage, which isn't too bad, really. But the main problem is that it's random. That being said, it scales so well with strength that I think it has to be B tier or higher. You can make the argument for it being A tier. It's just too much damage if you can get even like a little bit of strength. Like even an Inflame, fucking 5 times 3, 15 damage for 1 energy is absurd, even if it's random. So I think it's just a good card and potentially a great card. Tank. I think it's not great. I think it's just like, I don't think it's very exciting, which again isn't really a factor in this tier list, but I think you're kind of just killing yourself very slowly or very quickly in some cases. Like it allows your teammates to do more things, but like they're still gonna have to block, and some attacks are gonna be doing a shitload of damage. Um, and it just weakens you, and then becomes a 3v4 or a 3v whatever, and your teammates have to carry your slack because you fucking tanked and you died because you couldn't defend for an additional 50% incoming damage. Taunt, I think, is B tier. I think it's B tier. I think it's solid. Again, it allows you to be offensive and defensive at the same time while providing vulnerable synergy. Not a whole lot of vulnerable, so I do think it's a bit of an upgrade requirement, but it's still pretty strong, I think. So, not a whole lot to say about it. I think it's just a good way to be offensive and defensive at the same time while synergizing with vulnerable. Hair Sunder, I think, is good. I think it's maybe A tier. I think it requires a bit of scaling. It requires a bit of things to align, but once they align, like once you see the second round of your deck, or like the second cycle of your deck, you're probably, assuming you're doing Health Loss shenanigans, which is the only reason why you'd ever take Terra Sunder. Well, not the only reason, but like it's one of the only reasons. Um, like by the time you cycled your deck around the first time, it's gonna be pretty strong. And with strength gain, it's gonna be absurd, but it does require a bit of that setup, and it does require it's basically a curse for the first cycle of your deck, and then by the time it gets around to the second time, now it's doing something, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but I don't think it's that great. Thrash, I think is okay. I think it's just a little too slow scaling and too random in scaling. Like you're not playing, you have to leave an attack in your hand. You have to leave one of the stronger attacks, which you're then giving up and not doing damage with, like Bludgeon. Like I'd rather just play Bludgeon early than play a Thrash and scale. Yeah, it scales better, and so maybe it's better for longer fights, but like I'd still rather just play the Bludgeon probably because if I play, it's just I feel like it just requires too much to align. I feel like it requires you to have attacks that you want to sacrifice. I feel like it's too slow. I don't know. I just don't think it's that good. I think it's just too slow. I think that's the biggest crime of it is that it's too slow, it's random, and you're not playing the attacks that you want to be playing because they're being exhausted. So you're like, oh, well, I gotta save it so I can get a super big thrash. No, I'd rather just play the bludgeon. I'd rather just play the perfected strike. I'd rather just play the sword boomerang and then play thrash. I think it can be good. I think it can scale in late game fights, but like, or in really any fight. I just don't think it scales fast enough and is too random and is preventing you from playing the cards that you want to be playing, um, and not sacrificing to thrash. Thunderclap, I think, is okay. I think it's hard to like really make it work. I think just one vulnerable, even when you upgrade it, is a little criminal. I think it should be two vulnerable. Um, but maybe it'd be too strong. Maybe it's 6 damage, too vulnerable. I think that would be a lot better. Um, but like, I don't think the one vulnerable is really anything special. Um, I don't think the damage is anything special. Like, if I'm taking it for AoE in early fights, I still want another AoE to go on top of it, you know? Um, and with the eels, you're doing 4 damage, activating their shield, and then doing your big hit. Like, I don't think it's that good. I think it's just too little value, even for an AoE card. Tremble, I think, is B tier. I think it's like the best way to apply vulnerable early. I think if you want to do vulnerable shenanigans, it's kind of something that you have to have at least one of, just because it's the best way to play vulnerable early, and really in general, except for break. Um, it's kind of like your bread and butter. And I think because of that, it should be B tier, maybe even A tier. True Grit, I think, is B tier. I know I'm putting everything in B tier, but it's kind of like the middle of the road, so it's going to be like a bell curve, you know? Anyways, I think True Grit is a good amount of block. I think it can be used to thin your deck. Um, it's exhaust energy. The only problem is you kind of have to upgrade it because otherwise it's a little too RNG. But even then, it's not that bad. Like you can play around it. Um, but I think it's just a little too RNG, and I don't think it's that valuable. But I do think it is fairly valuable. So B tier. Twin Strike, C tier. I'd rather take Sword Boomerang. It's good with miniature cannon. It's good with strike dummy. I If I'm doing strength stuff, I'd still rather take a sword boomerang. Um, I think it's okay. I think it's not bad. I think it's just requires like the right setup to be on par with something that is generally superior to it, I think. And even with strength gain, like I'd rather just take sword boomerang. Unmovable, I think, is like A tier. I think it just allows you to be defense. It allows you to just play one card and be done. You know, like with block at least. You can just play Flame Barrier and get 32 fucking block, or how much? Yeah, 24 or 32. Like, that's pretty good. No energy for 24 block or 32 block is nuts. And it scales with Barricade very nicely. It allows you to play, if you have even one energy on on turns after you've played Unmovable, it just gives you so much value. I think you have to take it for defensive builds, and I think even in offensive builds, it still helps you be offensive by just making it so you don't have to block as much, or spend as much energy on block cards. Unrelenting, I think, is good, especially early game. I think it allows you to. Maybe it's C tier. I think it falls off, but I think early game is really good. I think early game it allows you to just do so much fucking damage maybe it's B tier because of that. It just kind of carries you through the early game, and it isn't bad late game. It's a free attack, even if it's one energy. Like, yeah, it's not the best, but it's still a free attack. Um, I think it's so much value early. It really is. Playing that and then bash, playing that and then projected strike, and then still having enough energy to block or do another attack, I think is just super valuable. Um, yeah, I think it's just really strong. Well, I mean, maybe not really strong, but like early game it's really strong, and then I think it falls off a bit. But like even then, it's still something that you don't mind having in your deck. Uppercut B tier, I think, doing a decent amount of damage for the energy cost. The real attraction is the weakness and vulnerable. I think that that's pretty valuable, um, especially if you're doing like um, the one that reduces the damage you take from vulnerable enemies on top of the weakness. I think that can kind of just like save you in certain circumstances. It does require a bit of setup, but I think even if you aren't doing that, the weakness and the vulnerability are still valuable enough to make it B tier. It's just I'm gonna be so fucking through with you. I just don't like vulnerable cards. I feel like they're a little weak. Um, like drawing a card when I apply a vulnerable, cool. When do I apply a vulnerable? I feel like I just don't. Again, maybe I'm underrating vulnerability, but like I just don't know. I feel like I just don't like vulnerability. I don't know what to say. Maybe I'm like looking at it wrong. Maybe I just need one good vulnerable run and then I'll understand what it's all about. But to me right now, I don't like it. And I feel like just getting one or two draw or applying vulnerability is just not enough for me to be excited. I mean, maybe it's C tier, but I feel like it's kind of just a dead draw. Like, I never play it when I have it. And then Whirlwind, C tier. I think there's better AoE options. It can be really strong if you can build around it with like Akabeko or Energy, Chemical X, things like that. But I still think there are better options in the form of Howl from Beyond and Stomp and other things probably. I'm trying to think of them. Pax End is probably still better. Yeah, I don't know. This is my tier list. Pretty cool. I like it. So S tier, we got Bloodletting, Corruption, and Offering. I didn't talk about these two because I think they're self-explanatory. Corruption is just really strong. It's a bit rare, and it does cost an it is costing you a relic that you would otherwise get, but I think it's worth it. To be able to play skills for free and do exhaust shenanigans basically to the moon. Offering is just fucking good. I don't really know what to say about it. It's just kind of the most obviously amazing card I've ever fucking had the pleasure of seeing. A tier, Ashen Strike, Battle Trance, Blaze, Blood, Wall, Body Slam, Brand, Break, Conflagration, Dark Embrace, Demonic Shield, Evil Eye, Feel No Pain, Fiend Fire, Flame Barrier, Impervious, Rupture, Stoke, and Unmovable. B tier, Barricade, Bludgeon, Breakthrough, Burning Packs, Cinder, don't know that card. Uh, Crimson Mantle, Dismantle, Drum of Battle, Forgotten Ritual, Havoc, Headbutt, Hemokinesis, Howl from Beyond, um, Inferno, Iron Wave, Midnight, Molten Fist, 1-2 Punch, Primal Strike, Primal Force, Rage, that card, Second Wind, um, Shrug It Off, Stomp, Sword Boomerang, Taunt, Tear Asunder, Tremble, True Grit, Unrelenting, Uppercut, and then C tier, we got Anger, Armaments, Bash, Bully, that thing, Dominate, expect to fight me. Infernal Blade, Inflame, Mangle, not yet. Paxen, Perfect Strike, Stoke, no. That card. Pyre, Spite, Stampede, Thrash, Thunderclap, Twin Strike, Whirlwind. D tier, we got Aggression, Cascade, Demon Form, Feed, Hellraiser, Juggernaut, Juggling, Outrage, Rampage, Setup Strike, Stone Armor, Tank, and Vicious. And then F tier, we got the Strikes and Defense. So yeah, pretty happy with that. Anyways, see ya.